our goal is the same at the end of the day, to make an impact, to make a difference. But we're serving different pockets of people.
Welcome back to Black Wealth Unlocked. I'm your host today, Kim Addie, Vice President of Strategy and Impact at the Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative. Today, for our conversation, we're going to be talking about ecosystem building. We'll unpack that later. But for now, I would love to introduce my guests. We'll start to my left with Melvin, and we'll work our way around.
Hello, I'm Melvin Coleman. I'm the President and CEO of the Atlanta Black Chambers.
Hi, I'm Leona Barr-Davenport, President and CEO of the Atlanta Business League.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Wilson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Georgia Microenterprise Network, GMEN.
Thank you. Thank you all for being in conversation today. I first like to say I did a little bit of research and just kind of like understanding you all, your leadership. I am sitting among some amazing visionary leaders that literally has been at the helm of your organizations for over 40 years. And yes, I did the math. So, not only have you all been, at the helm of your organizations, which brings, I think, unique insights to this conversation in terms of where you are situated, I think it's also important to note the institutions in which you sit, right? There is a lot of history historic experiences across each of your organizations. When I think about the Atlanta Business League since 1933, Booker T. Washington, that's 92 years when you think about that, which actually preceded the U.S. Chambers by at least 7 years. That's no shade to the Chambers. But Atlanta Business League has been out here really doing work around economic development alongside your institutions. Atlanta Black Chambers, next year will be 20 years. Right? I got that right. So you have been doing this work as well, and GMEN, right? Georgia Microenterprise, supporting micro businesses for more than 27 years. So when you think about like the collective knowledge and institutional knowledge that's sitting around this table, imaginary table, it's over 100 years, right? And so I think you all are uniquely positioned to kind of be in this conversation, which is really structured to understand ecosystem building. And I want to just clarify and provide a little bit of context and kind of demystify what we talk about when we're saying ecosystem building. And the best example is a garden, right? I remember with my first house, I went out and I wanted to recreate a garden in my front yard, similar to when I was growing up. And I went to Home Depot, bought all these flowers. They're amazing. Tulips, azalea bushes, and planted them all. And they looked really great, but they all died in a week. And I was just like, what happened? Not only did I waste money, I really didn't understand not just the science, but the conditions that I need to facilitate for my tulips to grow, right, which are annual, right? I needed to understand that. And when you think about ecosystem building in the community economic development space, there's this kind of interconnected levers of change that are really important that have to work in coordination, right? Which includes business serving organizations like you all, like the ones that you lead. But it also includes policy and regulatory policies and capital. All the things that businesses really need to thrive. And I feel like it's really important to note that the organizations that you sit play a really critical role in that. What's even more critical, I think, is also not that you work independently, but you are also working in coordination, right? When you think about that ecosystem, as we go back to the garden analogy, which is really important. So I want to unpack what does ecosystem building look like to you all. But I also want to learn more. I want our audience to learn more about your individual institutions. And so my first question that I'd like to start with, which I think is really important, is what grounds you in this work? When I think about over 40 years of leadership, leaders of color in this space, what keeps you going day to day in this conversation? And anyone can start first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I'll kick off. First of all, why don't I start by sharing that I was born and raised on a farm in South Carolina. We were sharecroppers, which was, for those of you who may or may not know, it is a form of labor where you live on the land of someone and you farm the land. And there's a process of splitting the proceeds at a later date. I'll give you just that much, but go look that up. So we were entrepreneurs early on, but we didn't know that. But as it relates to the Atlanta Business League, I became intrigued with the organization not many years after I came here. I was working for a company in Stone Mountain, and I became the representative for that company of the Atlanta Business League. So I started attending the Atlanta Business League's events and activities and just became enamored with the richness of Black business and Black entrepreneurs. What was so different about them was that they fell down, they got back up, they succeeded, they brought others along, and even as they struggled. And I think that's what drew me in. It was watching that struggle, knowing where I came from, and wanting to be a part of what I saw happening, knowing that there was a better day ahead. Yeah, and we had all examples of startups, established businesses, partners, individuals who had come together, those who had left corporate America to start businesses. So that was my introduction, if you will, to entrepreneurship, and it was powerful, and it's something that still stays with me today, which is why I'm still in this space.
I love that. I love that experience.
I feel the same way as Leona, that once I kind of found this space, it has kept me in this space for this length of time. G-Men was created 27 years ago, but 28 years ago, I came into the field to create the first women's microenterprise program here in Georgia, which was Business Now. And it was started by corporations, philanthropists, community organizations. Jane Fonda, she put her funds in to create that organization specifically to help disadvantaged women. And my first thought was, how am I going to do this work without knowing who else is doing work? So one of the first people I reached out to 28 years ago was Leona, and asked her, please, if you would, serve on our advisory board. Bring your knowledge to this field, which we were creating, trying to open doors for what we would call disadvantaged entrepreneurs, individuals who had not had an opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship or have access to business training, or didn't have capital, or were just struggling trying to make it work with employment, which was usually limited. So that theory of change at the time was, if we could introduce entrepreneurship and give people that second income, or allow people's gifts to find an open door, we could create a whole field. And 27 years later, here we are. G-Men was created to, again, just be that network, to bring organizations together so that we would know each other, know who was doing what, identify the gaps, be able to really embrace that entrepreneurial spirit that had really, a lot of people had not had access to it. So 27 years later, we're still doing that. And every day I still get a call from someone who is thanking us for giving them that chance. We really did not know if this would work, but the field itself has burgeoned. It has grown. We're seeing now that individuals in universities and community organizations that had kind of poo-pooed entrepreneurship as a viable source of income for people have now embraced it. So it's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur. I'm glad that there's such a large now ecosystem, and we hope to see that continue to grow.
Thank you
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have to start with where we are, Atlanta, and in the history of this city from a business perspective, what Atlanta represents for Black people all over the world. So your question about, what has grounded me in this work is just the opportunity to be a part of that rich, strong legacy, the history of business achievement and accomplishment, and having met so many people over the years. Shout out to the Atlanta Business League many years ago, attending meetings and seeing some of the very successful Black business owners. And now with entrepreneurship, to Elizabeth's point, this is the time, this is the place. We are the major players who are contributing to advancing this movement toward what is really Black ownership and control of businesses, organizations, and institutions. So I'm just so excited and know that I'm fortunate to be in this role right now, meeting people every day who tell me, Melvin, I came to Atlanta to start my business, and I'm from Africa, or I'm from the Caribbean. Not just I'm from someplace in the United States. Or it's, Melvin, I came to Atlanta to expand my business, which I was very successful in Memphis or in California. So they're coming here from all over the world, and we're the individuals in these key roles who have the opportunity to help them deliver on the expectations that they have, because this is Atlanta. So it's a very exciting time.
I love it. And the theme for me here is what you get out of the fullness of time, right? The experience, how proximate you are to the work, which gives you a unique view and a window into what entrepreneurs are navigating. That's why I said this is a really good conversation, and I want to continue doing that in that space along those lines. And so we are always talking about impact, right? Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative is all about results and impact. And so I would be remiss if I did not think about the impact of your organization. Yes, you all have been around for a long time, your organizations, your institutions. But talk to me a little bit about what are you most proud of in the work that you all are doing within your institutions that you sit.
That's such an interesting question. What are you proud of? I'm proud of the people. The people who believe that they have what it takes. That's the first step to success. Just believing that you can. Yeah. And then I'm proud of those who are successful, who are willing to give of their time. And success is not based on age. It's actually based on individuals, what they are willing to sacrifice and give up to grow. But as an organization, what we've done over the years is to find ways to promote entrepreneurship that may not quite be in your face. And there's nothing wrong with it being in your face. We host a number of awards events throughout the year. And the idea behind hosting those events is to raise the level of visibility of those individuals that we are honoring. What you tend to find is you have successful entrepreneurs and you have successful C-suite individuals who don't know each other. So the goal is to help connect the dots, to make sure they know each other. And through our seminars and training, we utilize our members and others in the community that we want our members to meet, to present those seminars and share their levels of expertise. Throughout the year, I would say approximately we touch about 3,000 individuals on an annual basis directly. Okay. And that could be in the form of an award. It could be through training. It could be just a number of different areas. We find ways to connect them. And then we talk with our members to find out, what are your needs? What are your needs? While we cannot provide every need, which is why other organizations exist. We can point them in the right direction. We make referrals. So the pride comes from existing for 91 years. Let's start there. It comes from those individuals that have been a part of the organization for years.
Yeah, the longevity.
And years. And no matter what happens, they're still involved. So to me, when you just look at, if I just use those buckets, that's something to be proud of.
That's awesome, Leona. And I think about like the importance of the social fabric that you just described that is really critical to businesses, not just connecting with one another, but also growing in their own kind of like development and making those connections.
One of the things that I'm very proud of, we were created to be a network, but we were also created to be a distribution hub. That we knew that there were funds that would come to the state that needed an organization to come through. So the first 10 years of GMAN, it was funded by the state. And we were able to redistribute those funds to other organizations. But when the state cut that line item out, GMAN had nothing. So it went away. So when they brought me back in, I don't know why I even listened to them, but they brought me in. There were 2 board members and 1 grant opportunity. They said, if you write this grant and get it, then you can maybe pay yourself a little something. So that was a $5,000 grant, 2 board members. But the power of a network and an ecosystem is so important. I said, I can do this. I can take this on. So from that $5,000 grant 10 years ago, what we've been able to do, particularly over the last 4 years, is we've distributed about $60 million to small businesses, to individuals who needed to stay within their homes, to rental assistance, grants, loans. Because we had such a long history of being kind of a distribution site, when the pandemic hit, people just give it to GMAN. They can get it to the people. So we kept raising our hands. Yeah, we can. Yeah, sure. We'll do that. Yes. Any county, any city. And to be able to do that and still stand today to say we can do even more. If you bring it to the state of Georgia, we will distribute it to the organizations who can get it into the hands of entrepreneurs. We could get it into the hands of families who are being evicted. We'll make sure that we don't lose all of our legacy businesses who were struggling to stay open during the pandemic. We can kind of be that, as we were saying earlier, some of these proposals are monsters. But we raise our hands and say, we'll go in and submit it on behalf of the ecosystem and continue to distribute and be that, at least that site, one place that people know that if it comes through us, it will get to us. So we're very proud of that and looking forward to future opportunities to replicate that type of work, not just here in Georgia, but across the Southeast.
I like that. And what's coming up for me and what you just described is that you all play a really important role in this ecosystem, and you basically build on your assets, right? Like Leona, you mentioned, here's something we don't do as well. We're gonna send this over to Georgia Micro Enterprise, GMAN. Sorry, apologies. But I think that's important, right? As you are recognizing what different organizations can do within this ecosystem and making that referral where it makes sense. Melvin?
So definitely the growth of the organization over the past several years has been phenomenal. And so we definitely have a sense of pride associated with that. What happens is we create the opportunity for these individuals to start these new, valuable, meaningful relationships. And, when I'm talking to members and they're telling me that they're doing business with someone and they met that person and by way of the Atlanta Black Chambers, because they're members, that just blows my mind. And I'm just like, wow, there's a sense of accomplishment definitely around seeing these productive relationships and knowing that the chamber facilitated this whole process for so many people here, because the entrepreneur population is so significant. And so we are serving that population and having some success. And so I'm proud of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that, Melvin. It's interesting because many might consider you all to be competitors, right? You all are serving businesses in the region, Black businesses in the region. Explain why that's the opposite. You kind of gave some indication early on, but tell us why you aren't competitors in that way, and actually why working together helps kind of advance, economic development in the region.
So at the end of the day, we're all working towards a common goal. First of all, we want to grow Black businesses. We want to help raise the level of visibility and revenue in the Black business community and with entrepreneurs. So the Atlanta Business League, and we've mentioned this already, is 91 years old this year, and we're very proud of that history. So many of our members are seasoned business owners. I would say 50%. The rest of the members of the organization are younger entrepreneurs, some startups, gig workers, solopreneurs, individuals from all walks of life who are in business. And so when you look at the organization, you might see or think that you see more seasoned business owners. All of them aren't, but they carry themselves in that way, and which is good. And I'll say, as for an example, our chair is the youngest chair that we've ever had in the history of the organization. Our board chair is 34 years old. I always refer to him as a young old soul, and that's Ryan Wilson. So I just wanted to point that out. But when you look at what Elizabeth has described as it relates to who she's serving, and you look at who Melvin is describing, there are pockets of groups and individuals that each of us serve separately. Our goal is the same at the end of the day, to make an impact, to make a difference, but we're serving different pockets of people.
It's always been important to us that there is a continuum, that if we're helping businesses to get started or helping businesses to create that infrastructure or working with organizations, we try to really identify who's your next. Where do you need to go from here, whether it be with capital. No matter where you start, you can continue to grow if you know how to grow and you know where to grow and who to connect to. So we're always encouraging people, now you need to join the chamber. Now you need to make sure you're part of the business league. Just go to an event, you'll start to meet people and then become a member. It's exciting to us when we see people who we maybe helped them when they first got started or helped them with their first business loan, but now they're going after the big contracts. We maybe help them to identify how to get that first employee, but now they're bringing on 10 people and expanding. And that's where we want to see businesses be. We want there to be legacy businesses that have been around for 10, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And we see Atlanta and Georgia as that place where anybody should be able to come and grow their business. So if I know that Melvin is having an event and I know that the people attending our classes have not attended his events, then we need to point them there so they can start getting in that network. When it's time to grow that business and have contracts and start to identify mentors, we know we need to refer people to the Atlanta Business League. So it's always that continuum. And it's also funny that a lot of times people who are at a certain level in business, but we found out during the pandemic, they need to go back to square one. So it's like, come back here. We can start you over again. Make sure you understand the technology that's necessary. make sure you have the financial and your books are together. We can help you kind of get the back end together so you can continue to grow.
It's easy when Atlanta is like the destination over the past 20 plus years.
Right.
More Black people have come to Atlanta or the metropolitan area.
Are we full or not?
Come on.
It looks like it, right? But hey, I mean, the Atlanta Black Chambers cannot deliver to all of the folks who have the critical needs that we provide. The ABL can deliver. So we need each other. So we don't have time to compete. I like Leona. I need you to help me. You do your thing, and I got it. And Elizabeth, you keep putting folks through these great programs because there's just so much opportunity. Yeah. So it's easy for us to not compete, but more so be there for each other because there's so much opportunity.
And Kim, I just have to say we are competing, but we're competing against California.
Yes,
that's who we see our competitors. Yeah. Every time we look at how federal dollars have been dispersed or technology funds have been dispersed, and we see that California, our sister state, is receiving 40% of the contracts, and we're getting 3% as a state. So if we do have a competitor, it's around the country because the South is still underserved. We can't compete. We have to work together because other parts of the state are taking on business opportunities and have an entrepreneur ecosystem that's much stronger and bigger than ours here in the state of Georgia and across the whole South.
Well, and what you brought up is really important. 55% of all Black people actually live in the South.
Right.
So when we think about racial disparities, what you just brought up is really important. So in terms of like who we're competing against, right? But the other thing that's also important, I think there's a value here, a value statement being made, and that is that you all's success is really tied to one another. And so when I think about like ecosystem building, that's really what it's about.
Agreed.
And that requires trust. It requires relationship building, spending time together, and actually just kind of, hey, being transparent about here's some of my challenges, right? And can you help? And I help. And that takes time, right? I always think about the fullness of time and the ability to kind of build relationships over time, so that you can be at this point where you're working with one another and not the contrary. So
we'll share an experience during COVID, and thank you for mentioning COVID, Elizabeth. 11 nonprofit and 1 for-profit company came together to help small businesses get their PPP loans. We created the concept and created this network actually for businesses to sign up to register. And once they registered, they were able to sit with a professional who helped to walk them through the process. So over the course of 3 days, we serviced 250 small businesses. We had over 50 volunteers. And these organizations all came together to make that happen. That's a good example of what you just asked, because at a point like that, there are no big eyes and little U's. We've got to make it happen. We have to help our community survive. And that's what we did. And so the goal is to find other initiatives that land in that kind of space where we're making a difference. So we will continue to do that. We will continue to do what we do. But when there's an opportunity for us to work together, we'll make that happen.
I appreciate that. And when you think about where those dollars actually got dispersed, the PPP loans, it actually drives further the point of why we all need to work together, right? Just because of capacity and just what we're up against in this environment. And so thank you for lifting that up. It's interesting when I think about also the tenure here, right? Like 40 plus years here of experience. You also have lived across lots of different things and experienced the pandemic, different elections or leadership shifts in leadership in our political systems, housing crisis. it makes me think about what you all are navigating, right, to support Black businesses in the region, and would just really love to know, how do you see this landscape evolving, continuing to evolve over the next 5 years, and how will that evolution impact the way you all partner, or will it? So I'm just curious, just if you can give some insights.
Yeah, I believe technology is at the heart of everything that we're doing.
Yep.
It is literally at the heart. It's going to make or break us. We can't live without it. We will be utilizing it to help move our businesses and our organizations to the next level. I don't know that it's going to change, because the need that we're all feeling is not going to change. We'll just have to do more in a different way. And so Elizabeth, please respond, but I don't see that changing. And I will say one other thing as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The reason I brought up technology is that when you're doing business virtually, when you're building these sites to sell and to consult, you can exist without color.
That's right.
Without gender, and without, you could be 80 doing it, you could be 24 doing it, and be successful. So
I agree with you, Leona. I think it's so important that we're trying to catch up with technology. When there have been leaders around the country, Silicon Valley, we all know that was a leader in technology, and where billionaires were made, we're just tapping into that technology as opposed to being the innovators. We're the end users, but we're not the innovators. So we really have to, over the next 5 years, kind of change our game plan and our business plans so that we get in front of opportunities as opposed to constantly responding to them. During the pandemic, we really were called to service. We were in this building. We had 90 people in a class where we were able to give them free websites and free the ability to sell online on a Friday. Monday, the city closed down. So it was like, okay, we have these 90 entrepreneurs. We immediately have to now help them change their whole game plan to go from being commercial properties that are open every day to now being able to sell online. So those are the type of projects that we're always looking for. How can we make the playing field more equal? How can we bring on a big project and just say, y'all come, send anybody? Well, we got it. If we can fit them in the room, we're going to provide the resource. We're going to make sure that it's now an equitable playing field, and then be able to start giving ourselves enough time. A 5-year window, I think, is where we should be thinking, how can we change the game for Black-owned businesses, for female-owned businesses, for businesses owned by returning citizens, for businesses from the South to be able to be a part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem as opposed to always being the consumers. And it might take us 5 years to do that, but if we make that a part of our game plan, as well as making sure everyone has access to capital, that they have access to credit. We can't grow businesses without funds and without resources. So making it our business to knock down some of those barriers so that all businesses can run the race.
I'll go back to Leona's point about technology. I believe we have to make it easier for the consumers in our community to spend their dollars with Black-owned businesses, and I see technology being a huge component to making it easier to shift some of the $1.8 trillion that we spend now annually. So
say that number again.
$1.8 trillion that we contribute to this economy, and we need to shift. If we could get to 10%, it would blow our minds. The impact that would, we're like less than 5% that we actually spend. So technology is huge. Great point, Leona. But another thing that they both will agree on is policy. So there are policies that exist now that are contributing to us being able to move forward and achieve some things, but those policies are in jeopardy. They could go away depending on, what the future looks like here, maybe about 3 months. But so policy is huge. And will we get better policy that needs to be established, say, in this 5-year window? Because we still don't have what we need. So we're looking at policy, and we've got to be active as a community to make sure these things happen.
Well, thank you for lifting that up, because I think about the ecosystem, right? And so policy is a part of that, and how you all work together to advance policies that benefit Black businesses in the region is important. That's where I hear you lifting up. I also hear in this conversation the ability to be agile, right?
Yes.
And be able to be responsive to the environment. When you talk about AI, it's the difference between being a producer versus a consumer. And how do we get ahead of these things and prepare businesses, not just to be consumers, but also to be producers? And what are you all's role in that space in terms of like programming, and how do you stay abreast of those things as the environment changes? So, I mean, I'm clear in terms of how you all work together, which is really important to building this ecosystem that at the end of the day really creates a thriving economic region for Atlanta, and actually beyond Atlanta. When we talk about the South, what we do here really impacts other regions. So thank you all for joining me in this conversation today. Really were able to gain insights from just the wealth of knowledge that you all bring. And I was thinking, as we close out, I would love to hear any closing remarks from you all. And because of the positions that you sit in, I would love to hear if you have any advice to give for entrepreneurs that are either starting out in this work or they're thinking about kind of growing their business.
Sure. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited about what's ahead for Atlanta Wealth Building and all of us. The Atlanta Business League will be celebrating its 40th annual Super Tuesday Conference on Tuesday, October 15th at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. The theme is One Great Day, the Ballot, the Book, and the Buck. That theme came about as a result of the late Maynard Holbrook Jackson, who believed that if Black people, if Black entrepreneurs, families were ever going to move to the next level, that they needed to focus on those 3 areas. The Super Tuesday Conference was founded by the female members of the Atlanta Business League 40 years ago. So we are so excited to celebrate 40 years on October 15th. So all of you are welcome to attend, and you will begin getting information on that very soon. One other piece, we have a community initiative that we're focused on. We're in the process of renovating the Ashby Street Theater. And for those who may not know, the theater was founded in the 1900s. And at one point, it was the only theater that allowed Black people to come in through the front door. We purchased that building years ago with the hope of being able to revive it, not necessarily as a full theater, but as a community-based facility, that so much will be able to happen in it once it is developed. So we look forward to sharing that with you, our walk, our growth, as we move to the next level. And if I am able to give one piece of advice, don't be afraid to ask for what you want or what you need. Everyone is not going to say yes, but some will. And that one may be the advice that you need.
I love that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I think I would like to share also October the 16th. So you'll have 2 days that you'll be involved with our organizations. On the 16th, G-Man has been invited to be the chair of the Southeast region on behalf of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. So the country has been divided up into 6 regions, and we are the chairs for the South region. we'll be launching this initiative in partnership with AEO, the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, at the Federal Reserve. So we're going to invite all of our ecosystem partners to start talking about the South. And again, I'm glad it's in October and not after November, so we can really start thinking collectively of how we can elevate the needs of the South to the federal level policy, as well as our philanthropic and corporate partners who really need to make more investments here in the South. I think the one bit of advice that I would give any entrepreneur is to do exactly what I did. Find somebody else in the area that you can partner with as soon as possible. Entrepreneurship is not something that you should do alone, particularly since 2020. Every entrepreneur should be looking for partnership opportunities, the opportunity to bring on additional employees. Having the statistic that 96% of African-American businesses only have one employee needs to be a statistic that no longer exists. So as soon as possible, you need to start thinking about ways of how you can bring someone else on to help you or bring someone else on to advise you so that you can be like G-Man is 27 years later, because we made those early decisions to be advised, to find partners, to create ecosystems. We're still standing today.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Well, Atlanta is such an international city. Really, really is. And because of that, we, over the past couple of years, have really had a focus on what we call global opportunities. And we've had a couple of trade delegations, one to Africa, one to South America. And so our Global Opportunities Committee, they're having what we're calling the Global Opportunities Conference, October 2nd through the 5th at the World Congress Center. And we're super excited about this. We got people coming from all over the world. Again, Atlanta is an international city, and for Black people, it is that place where, doesn't matter where you are in the world, you want to have that ATL experience. So global opportunities is the way forward for all of us, because we're all over the world, the diaspora, as it is called. And we want to do business with brothers and sisters everywhere. It's a huge opportunity. So the Global Opportunities Conference, October 2nd through the 5th at the Georgia World Congress Center. My piece of advice would be, yes, there is this powerful ecosystem that exists, but if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, and you're not connected or a part of it, then you're missing out. I've met so many business owners who were not connected, not engaged with any of our organizations. There's a Jamaican restaurant not far from my house that I like to go get my curry chicken and red beans and rice, if you will. And a few years ago, I said, hey, do you know about this whole restaurant initiative where they had the funding for restaurants? They wanted to save, because restaurants were really in trouble, as you know. Right. Yeah. And they said, no, what are you talking about? And it was just another example of they were not a part of our community. Mm-hmm. They were not tapped in, and they were missing out on all of this valuable information. It's just information so you can take the right next step. But thanks to me, they were able to take advantage, because they were almost giving away money at that point for those restaurants. Oh, wow. All you had to do was, hey, submit, be right, and because they were trying to save them.
Right.
And so there's so much of that going on. You got to be a part of this powerful ecosystem. You got to be tapped in.
Thank you for joining today's conversation, Black Wealth Unlocked. I was your host today, Kim Addie. If you'd like to keep up with updates and activities of the Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative, please visit our social pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Thank you for joining us.